I'd like to call to the order Parking Advisory Committee of May 3rd, 2023. Please stand and salute the flag. Thank you. Items on the agenda for tonight's meeting. Continued discussion regarding EV charge stations. Some of the things to be discussed: pricing modules for use of the EV stations, cost of operation and maintenance to be covered by the Park and Benefits District, market research to be presented by Economic Development on kilowatts per hour, parking fines for the EV stations, any items not reasonably anticipated by the chair.
So thank you, Zach. Yeah. So as I've handed to the committee some data regarding the use of our EV chargers for the last, I want to say 2 fiscal years, we were able to get some additional EV charging stations for free through National Grid. We installed 2 additional stations at City Hall, 2 stations at Shirley Ave, and 2 at the Hill School. Right now, currently, the only thing the city is paying for these stations is the electricity that it discharges. All of the networking fees, the warranty fees are covered under the grant that we received. So what I did in the chart, I started to look at the data versus when the stations were first installed, and that was during FY21. I started on May 1st, and then I ended the data collection for that year at 6/30/21. The second column reflects data collected from FY22, first full fiscal year from 7/21 all the way to 6/30/22. So as you can see, as we move on from year to year, the electrical use by public using our EV chargers in the City Hall lot, Shirley Avenue lot, and the Hill School lot has increased considerably. So some of these numbers, when you go through the chart, it's the total kilowatts dispensed per station, total megawatts. And then because the City Hall chargers were being used both by public EV vehicle owners and the municipality vehicles, the drivers that work for the city that are using it for engineering, public works, parking. Some of those uses were mixed in, so I teased it out. But you can see that the number of sessions has increased considerably from FY22, from FY23. City Hall has jumped from 1,700 sessions to 2,100 sessions. Shirley Ave is becoming quite popular. The sessions are anywhere from, they were in 22, they were 598, and now they're up to 1,400. The Hill School, there's a little bit of a dip in use, and that was because the stations were installed and then they were damaged, so they were shut down for quite some time. And they are coming back up to the use that we've seen when they were first installed. A couple of things about this sheet. We have public sessions, the total, the column that says number of unique drivers. So that's the number of, so somebody who keeps charging their vehicle at the same station more than once a month, they're considered a unique driver. We can see the number of times that unique driver is actually charging up at our stations. I don't know who they are, but we can see by their charging code how many times they're actually charging up. So this ranges anywhere from 6 charges a month to 12 charges a month, depending on the use of the vehicle. But that's one thing to note. So the numbers that you see in the number of unique drivers is actually the numbers reported so far. So some of these people are repeat users month after month. I don't have the ability to break that out, compare month after month numbers, but that's what we're looking at. So the trend continues to rise upward. Our utility costs are becoming quite expensive, but what I do have here is also a memorandum from Weston and Sampson, who's conducting a feasibility study on the use of EV chargers, the placement of EV chargers for both Winthrop, Chelsea, and Revere. They were given our utility bills, were given a copy of the sheet. Up to March numbers, we're averaging about 2,600 kilowatts per month based on just the public charging. And that ranges anywhere from 21 cents to 18 cents, depending on the type of service being delivered. They are suggesting, and this is something that we should probably think about and maybe put on the agenda for the next meeting, is charging at least a 30-cent per kilowatt hour for the public use, and then deciding how that money would be dispersed between the two different districts, Shirley Ave, and then how that money would be used for City Hall. The other thing I do want to mention, in the reports that I have looked at, I've noticed that some of the charging times can be range from anywhere from 2 hours to 5 hours. So there's quite a bit of electricity being dispensed. Some cities and towns, what we do know is that they only allow for a 2-hour charge, and they program the system so that it shuts down, or they incur an additional fee of like 50 cents for every minute or hour after that 2 hours. So that's one way we could kind of eliminate that excess charging. The other thing I do want to point out that we have about 7 to 8 city employees that work here in City Hall. They are using our chargers weekly. They've been great eyes on the street to tell us when things are wrong or things aren't working. If we decided we're moving forward, we're going to charge the public, well, we could also put that group, those 7 or 8 municipal employees, in a private group, and they could either get charged whatever the rate is for electricity, or they would get, or they may not get charged at all. That would be a decision for this committee and how we want to move forward. So that's all I have for this. I welcome any questions. I know this is a lot of information, but I think we can all agree that with the cost of kilowatt per electricity, per station and per area, it has gone up quite a bit.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Julie, I have a question. The grant money that you've received, does that help in any way for paying for the actual electricity or just the maintenance?
No, it just covered the installation of the station. It covered any upgrades and transformers or utility service from the pole to our cabinets. It covered the networking fee, so the Wi-Fi that signals all this, we're covered under that. And then it comes with a 5-year warranty. So general maintenance issues, on-call service, that's all covered. Parts are not covered, they're just under the general 1-year parts and labor. But that would be, that's what was covered under that grant. And so we are actually in year, I want to say we're actually coming up on year 2 of our coverage, because we started in May 1st of 2021. So, and, you know, we're actually hitting that 2-year anniversary mark of when all this was installed.
So the stations, right now, if you just pull up to it, you plug in your vehicle and the electricity comes on. If we start charging, I imagine you use a credit card to access the...
Well, so what happens is our service provider for the EVs is called ChargePoint.
Okay.
So what they would do is they would, the charge would be admitted through them. So so right now they're getting charged, the user is getting charged whatever the electric company is charging us.
Okay.
And technically, because we don't have a fee associated with this, they get it for free.
Okay.
And so what we could do is we could assign a fee. So anytime anybody signs in, that fee would automatically get passed on to their account, because you have to have a ChargePoint account to charge up.
Okay.
And then at the end of the month, they would send us a percentage back to the city.
Okay.
And it would just be basically on what it is we want to charge. So if we charge, so let's say if we charge 30 cents, it cost us 18 cents. They keep like a small percentage of that,
Okay.
and we get the rest.
And then public cars, like our own cars, how does that?
So Zach has set it up, so all of his drivers are under one code.
Okay.
So they would not get charged. And we can create groups. We can create reservations. We can also change the pricing for off-peak hours. We could change the pricing for weekend hours if we wanted to. If we had an event downtown and we really wanted to promote the event and the use of the parking lots, we could, I don't know, reduce the fee even more. So we have a lot of flexibility. Everything is on this
Okay,
dashboard that I have through ChargePoint.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman, question
Mr. Disquet?
to Julie. On the memorandum from Weston and Sampson, that grid on the bottom of page 1, could you explain to me, is that Hill School, it's got a different electric rate category, and it's got a number that looks like an error, I'm not sure, 2603, 1474, and then 57,000, is that a typo?
That's the whole school. So the way that the Hill School is set up, the meters for the charging stations are already tied back to the building. The wire goes underneath and ties back into the building. So that is the full rate, the full use for the whole building for 1 month. For the Hill School, what I had to do was go back and look at the electric bills that was sent to me by the school department, and then I looked at the data on ChargePoint and just subtracted out the kilowatt use per month to kind of come up with that. And I think in March it was low, but it's minimal. Plus 2 for that. They're on a different tier. They're on a G3 tier, so it's only 18 cents. I think the school department must have another contract. City Hall and Shirley Ave. We also have a second-party provider, which is Constellation. So we get some of our energy from National Grid, and then we get some more energy from Constellation. Another way that we could pay for some of this, too, if we wanted to defer the cost, is our net metering credits, if they're not being applied to anything else. That's all the solar credits that we get.
So am I reading right on the large spreadsheet that the kilowatt hours in the Hill School are much less than the other meters? Is that just lack of use, or is that
No,
broken meters?
that's correct. Yeah, the kilowatt use or the use of the EVs is considerably much lower than the other 5 public charging stations. And that also can be too for the fact that, during the day, the school is occupied by staff vehicles, and these charging stations may not be available for use until after school gets out. And we can also take a look and see, when I looked at the data to see, it seems to be the same drivers based on the identifier numbers that are charging up there. And it's really, I think this month for April, there was only, I want to say 17 charges, and I think there was maybe 3 to 4 drivers, the same drivers charging up.
Thank you. And just one more question. On the rates, they don't really translate to what we're typically used to on a meter, $1 an hour or what have you. What does 25 or 30 cents per kilowatt hour, what's that mean? Let's say someone parks there for 2 hours, however long it takes to charge. What's that translate into for 30 cents per kilowatt hour? Is that $2? Is it $5? I'm not quite sure how that correlates.
I was playing around with the math before this meeting, and I looked at the numbers just for April. I went on the ChargePoint dashboard, and so for April, they're saying we use 6.2 megawatts. So that translates to 6,200 and something, 81, I think it was, kilowatts. So times 30 cents, it's only $1,800 for the month, but that's for all 5 stations.
Right, but I guess put another way, if I park my car there and I
It all
plug it
depends
in.
on how much you need. It's all gonna depend on how much your car needs at that time.
Let's say my car needs 2 hours of charging, how much does that correlate to, would you say?
It could be anywhere from $3 to $5, probably.
And is that average of what we see in other communities?
That's probably average of what we see in other communities. But other communities also charge, so much per percentage after you go over those 2 hours, or they give you a $20 ticket if you're over the 2 hours. It all depends on what you have. Some communities will allow those first 2 hours to be free, and then it's 50 cents for every hour afterwards. Or it's a straight fee of $1. So you could be there all day, or you could be there for an hour, but it's $1.
Okay, great, thank you.
And to help follow up on your question, Mrs. Gay, we sat through a seminar about some pricing, easy modules. In some other communities, they charge price per kilowatt plus a flat rate, like using a meter. So some communities we've seen, like Watertown, has put on a $2 fee on top of these charge stations, as well as paying per energy usage.
All right, great, thank you, because at least, excuse me, the way I would envision this being a unique fund, for the Park and Benefits District, I would envision that we would have these meters charging a certain amount of dollars, kilowatt hours, but all the revenue, I would believe, would go into the Park and Benefit District Fund, and then we could then use that money to do the repairs or add additional stations or pay the electrical bill or some portion of it. I don't want to overcomplicate this, especially if it's not a lot of dollars. And if it becomes, a much larger operation, we can kind of bifurcate it out of the Parking Benefits District. But I think that what we want to try to strive to is to get a reasonable price. We don't want to discourage people using them, but we also want to try to recoup some of that money to add some more, or at least cover our costs for repairs, et cetera. So, if there's a recommendation that you may have, I'd love to hear it on what you think a good price model would be, unless we think we have to defer that. But I think we got to start, since we meet every quarter, we might want to at least get some momentum.
So the one thing, Zach, I think I still have that spreadsheet that we created last summer. I mean, if you can give me I can pull it up and just pull up the rates. The Weston and Sampson, that contract with them just got signed like 2 weeks ago. They had our information for 1 week. And in the memo, they clearly expresses there's been limited research on how our EVs are functioning versus other communities that have such high use and what they charge. I think if we could maybe let them explore this for us, maybe for another month, we can, maybe set the price then. But I can also look up that EV sheet that we put together. But I mean, it was minimal. There really wasn't much more than what is being proposed tonight.
That is correct. During our first discussion, there wasn't as much usage as we're seeing this time around.
I would imagine also that there's some cost to getting the app. I don't know, is there any cost for the app for the public to operate that app to pay for the meter and pay for the charge? And that would, I assume, work similar to if someone paying a parking meter with a credit card, that would netted out the funds, and that would go into a certain account, and then we would just account for it that way.
I mean, I would think so. We'd have to take a little bit more deeper look into it, but we can see what the underlying, rates are from ChargePoint, if they're charging with a credit card, what the exchange rate is, or what have you.
Thank you.
One question I had, the only thing I was a little confused on was if a unique user is using the ChargePoint app to book a session, and ChargePoint is charging them, or they're charging the city and washing it away with whatever balance they can get from the user. I was a little confused on that.
So right now, they're not charging us anything on it because of this grant. So the municipal vehicles, every time one of your drivers logs in, you get charged. And I'd have to double check and see how that works, but I believe that it would just kind of be rolled into the electric cost. And I'd have to look into that a little bit more, because it doesn't really make sense. We should be getting billed something from ChargePoint, and we're really not. We're just you get a maintenance fee, the maintenance contract for the 2 stations that you have, and then we don't see anything else for the other 5. So that operations fee must be wrapped up in that grant. So I'll have to take a look at see how we can tease that out and understand what the actual fees are once the grant timeline is gone. So we have another 3 years.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Agenzio?
So I think that maybe we should decide on starting to charge, maybe September 1st. We could have some more meetings, and then at our next regularly scheduled meeting, we could vote to start the process to start, charging. I think that'll give us enough time to do the research. With more and more electrical cars coming online, this cost is going to just keep increasing and increasing. I know I have the electric bills here, and I know we paid like $1,000 for the City Hall and the Shirley Ave lot just the month of March. That doesn't include Hill School. So I think we have to start recouping these costs, and it's only going to get higher and higher as more electrical vehicles come on the road. So do you think that's a reasonable timeline to get ourselves decided on how much we're going to charge and get the system set up, and maybe have a target date of September 1st? Is that,
Just to finish him, our next meeting is June 21st.
is June, okay?
I mean, I think it's a reasonable time, as long as we stay on this and we keep the momentum building. Just to give you another idea too, just pulled up our municipal charging rates comparison. When we originally first started this, we talked about giving a regular $20 fee if they went over the 2 hours. And I don't think that that's actually enforceable because it was never really recorded with the Traffic Commission. And then so Amesbury, it's just throw out some numbers right now, but this is from the summertime. Summer rates, it was 26 cents a kilowatt, and it's $2 if you go over the time of 30 minutes. So if you go over 30 minutes after the 2 hours, you get charged $2. Arlington, it's 30 cents, and then they charge you a 50 cents parking fee. Gloucester, it's a straight parking fee of $1. Melrose, it's 20 cents, and then a time violation fee. Anything over the 30 minutes after the 2 hours is $5. And then Westboro, they charge, I think, what was their electrical fee, which is 12 cents, and then the parking fee, which is they added on 50 cents. So I think there's a lot of ways we can kind of look at this. I think that there's a couple of other things that will need to be done prior to saying we're going to charge. One of it is we're going to have to change our ordinances for parking to include a parking violation fee for EV charging if you're over the time limit. So that would have to go before the traffic Title 10 fee, and then also just a general fee for the charging, just to charge up if you want to charge up. And I'm not sure if the EV policy is something that would go in the Traffic Commission, or if it has to go in the general ordinances, and then the fines associated would go in the parking. So I think we have two separate ordinances we'd have to tackle. We can talk with Claire about that. But I think, we could get enough information together and get it together before the next meeting.
And just to address something, Mr. Agenzio, is if it's within posted area for overtime, does that need to go in front of the Traffic Commission?
I assume it does, because
Yes.
it's a new, it would be a new
Even though it already
violation.
exists on the books, do you think it needs to come back in front of the Traffic Commission?
So when you say it's on the books, what's on the
For
book?
posted area, overtime other than a meter?
Oh, no, I suppose that could be applied to a electric charging station. Yeah, no,
Thank you.
shouldn't have to change that.
So I am addressing the Traffic Commission. I sent a communication to Laurie about 2 other projects.
Okay.
It's just addressing the Traffic Commission, so I can add this into the general communications, that this is something that will be put forth to the Traffic Commission in coming months. So nobody's surprised, you know what I mean?
Thank you.
Do I have a motion to push this for further discussion for a public meeting, next meeting? Any
Yes,
second for
motion.
that motion? Second. Motion so ordered. Final item on the agenda is, unfortunately, we have lost our vice chair. He is acting mayor, and he is no longer a part of this committee. I need a motion to appoint another vice president.
Do we have any nominees?
Stay consistent with the counselors. Since
I
it was a
nominate
ward council.
Ira Novoselsky.
Do I have a second to that motion?
I second that motion. Well,
So ordered.
Mr. Chairman, I know that we have an agenda here, but just, it's not on there. Maybe we, being a second meeting, I know we're still working on some kinks, but, just to give you an update, excuse me one second. I just got an update on how much cash we have in our fund, so I figured
I wrote that down before the meeting.
as of today, in the Park and Benefits District, we do have $24,140 that we've collected to date from those designated areas and those permits that we have set up to apply to this fund. So not a tremendous amount of money, but I think we'll start to pick up more momentum here. And you know, again, I think our first big ticket item that we're looking at is these EV stations, but listening to Mr. Argenzio, it doesn't appear that we'll ever really collect enough money to pay for the electric costs themselves. So I think when we set up this model, it's going to have to be assumed that the city will pick up the electric costs, and then, you know, these revenues that come in for the use would just have to go to the maintenance and maybe expansion of the program. And then if we do decide that we're going to have parking ticket revenue, you know, we should decide whether those particular types of tickets go back into the Park and Benefit District, or if that just becomes part of the general fund. So these are things to consider when we set up a model.
If I may,
I agree.
Mr. Chairman, just question, on these EV stations, are we going to have to put some, what it costs to use it, some stickers to see how much it costs and what the fines could be, and on the machine itself, so that people using it know what's going on?
So the dashboard, the charge point station itself, it says, like, we can program, all of them are programmed, they say, welcome to Revere City Hall, or whatever, wherever the station is. So then it will say, we can program it to say, this station will charge, to charge here, it'll cost, it's 30 cents per, so we can put all that right on the station. On the charge point app, it will say, too, as well, that they're going to get charged for it, so.
Will it give them a total at the end of the charge of what it cost them for that session?
And say that again, give the full name.
Will it show on that the dashboard, at the end of the charge session, will it show them how much they use and how much it costs?
Yes, it will show them how much they use and how much it costs, and then it will also show, I can also look and see how much we're making per session once we apply a fee to it. So we'll be able to see it in real time. At any time, I can go on the dashboard and I can see who's charging and how long they've been there.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple more questions. Sorry, Julie, you're the expert here, so we got to keep drilling you. But one question is, do we know on average how long a car needs to be plugged into an EV station to get that maximum charge? Like, for enforcement purposes, is 2 hours reasonable that you plug in and you should be fully charged, or is it an hour, or is it 3 hours? I don't quite know how that works.
I'm not an EV charge expert. It may depend on battery size. I know these cars come with different sizes. I know each charger has a certain amount of output of power they can do. I know there are some fast chargers that you can charge up within an hour. I'm not sure the status of these stations. I think that's a good question.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. It ranges anywhere from, a full charge could be anywhere from 2 to 3 hours. And there's something about the Tesla charges. They can charge up the car in like 2 hours, but if you have a Tesla and you try to charge up at a level 2 station, which is what we have, it can take 5 hours. So, and then it also depends on how much electricity you have in your storage unit in the car at the time. So I mean, but we could, but that might be a question that we could put back to Weston and Sampson and just ask them, you know, on average, based on the different type of models that are coming out. And that's the other thing too. Some of these cars are, the Teslas, there's different models. There's 2 new brands coming out, different vehicle types. But we could say, you know, what is the appropriate time limit to charge up. On the dashboard, it usually shows that most people are charging up no more than 2 hours, but we do have some people that are there for like 5, 6 hours.
And the last question I'll have is, being that these Hill School EV chargers don't seem to get nearly as much use as the others we have, would we consider, are they mobile that you can move them somewhere else, or are we kind of in the sunk cost that it costs so much to plant them there, we just hope that they catch up to the others?
No, they're stuck there. They're definitely stuck there for now, unless we want to redo the whole parking lot, but.
All right, thank you.
In regards to the time, maybe we can do a field study and drain one of our cars, put it out there and see how long it takes to get a full charge.
Well, I think, and I don't know enough about it, but it sounds like if the Hill School's using those for their teachers parking, and they're parking there all day, it seems to be contrary to what we're trying to accomplish, so we may want to make those, not school all-day parking or something to that effect. So just something to consider, because maybe the lack of usage is just a lack of availability.
I concur with that. Final item, we did have a bill that was presented during the last meeting. There is, one of the charge stations has a network contract, extension of the network contract that has been expired. It was discussed in the first meeting if this body would be willing to take on this cost through the Parking Benefits District. Are we willing to have a vote tonight on that?
Yeah, how much is the bill for?
It varies over different ranges. The 4-year plan was the most cost-effective, we thought, and for 2 ports, it will cost $2,350 for a 4-year plan.
Okay, I make a motion that we,
A second.
So ordered.
Just, since we do have a public person in the audience here, we may want to add an agenda for public comment on here. We don't have it on the agenda, but I would welcome Mr. Paziali if he had any questions, or if he just wants to be an observer. I know he's quite talkative, so, Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Do I got a motion for an adjournment?
motion to adjourn.
Second on that?
Second. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.